This is Kingdom Commerce, and today's episode starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Kingdom Commerce. I'm your host, Cooper Peterson, joined by co-host Luke Reichbos, the Red Rocket, Scott Moffitt, one of our sponsors, and Joe Abraham. And in this episode, we're going to be interviewing a student company here at Cedarville, Crown Chains, and learn about how they got their product to market. And I'm really excited to learn about the manufacturing, how they got their product made. Scott, anything you're excited to learn about in this segment?
When I learned about their company and what they've accomplished as students, it blew me away. The resources that were available to them were tremendous that Cedarville provided through their IBC program, but resources are only as good as you utilize them, and what they've been able to accomplish and they're going to be able to talk about should inspire a lot of our watchers and listeners.
All right.
Yeah, I think what you guys in our last episode got to talk about kind of the academic side of how do you go about launching a product, and you gave us steps and you gave all that, right? This is an opportunity to hear from a real life startup going, okay, how did they go about it? They may not they likely didn't do all your steps, but they did something to become successful. What can we learn from it? And what can our listeners learn from it? What are you hoping to get most out of it?
I'm excited to see how they're planning on going forwards.
Mm-hmm.
I know they've launched and they did that here on campus, but campus is a bubble.
Yeah.
And I want to see and want to understand what their plans are for reaching outside of Cedarville and getting that sustainability from a market that's not a student body.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's going to be pretty interesting. I've heard a lot about what they're planning and what they have done in the story, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and your feedback, especially from you guys.
I'm sure they're not going to give us all. I'm sure they're not going to give us all the secret sauce in terms of product roadmap, but
probably not.
Maybe some hints,
just
of
some
what's to
tips
come.
that the others can benefit from.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to this segment, guys. We're going to be interviewing Mia and Chaitin from Crown Chains. They are students who worked with the IBC program to start a company here on campus. As we dive into a lot more of the topics that were discussed in the previous episode with Cooper and Scott of bringing a product to market. With that said, let's get right into the questions.
I think one of the big questions we have for you before we get into how you got your product to market is, how did the idea even come up? What was kind of the story around it?
Yeah. So IBC is Integrated Business Core. It's a program here at Cedarville University, which just allows students to come together. They apply for the program, and they form a team from there, and then they kind of start doing research. Okay. So it really started with research, and we kind of realized that chains and necklaces were very in, and that was kind of a thing that people were interested in. And from there, we got to, okay, what is the need with that product specifically? But then I think as we delved into that a little bit further, we realized that there was not only a need of there was a high cost for good quality, and the issue with the clasps that people hated the typical claw clasps, putting those on and off, it was difficult. But we found a greater need that people were really feeling disconnected and they wanted to feel a part of something. And so that's kind of how we started to build this community around this product.
So as you were going through that process, Chaitin, how about you? What was the process? How many of you were on the team that got put together?
10.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there were 10, but I would assume that a handful of you really kind of led it, right?
Yeah. I think especially towards the beginning, it tended to be kind of me and Mia facilitating a lot of the meetings and just deciding that, hey, we want to really pursue this, and we're given so many opportunities here in the IBC.
Mm-hmm.
We would love to be able to take advantage of those and really try to make this a business that is able to be successful, which and I think that's been such a blessing to be a part of. So
you know how Mia mentioned that you guys first went down the jewelry path.
Yeah.
Then you started to discover about the clasps.
Mm-hmm.
Then you started to discover about the demand and the interest. Yeah. What mechanism were you using to figure all that out?
Yeah. I think so. One of the things that we were thinking through was the idea of we need to set ourselves apart from those on the market. So that's kind of one of the integral parts of the IBC. But how are we going to set ourselves apart from the competition? And we knew a lot of these other chain companies. First of all, we wanted to be cheaper and still high quality. But also with the magnetic clasps, the idea was, okay, it is a little bit irritating, and it's sometimes just annoying to feel like you have to put on the clasp, especially with the bracelets that we're kind of exploring now and we'll be releasing soon. But I think, like, at least for me, I was thinking through, man, okay, this is aggravating to put on in the morning, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, in honesty, it's not that big of an issue. But we were like, okay, that something that would make it much easier to put on would be a really easy way to set ourselves apart. And I know that for a while we were thinking maybe twist clasps with like a screw, and then eventually we realized that magnets were something that was feasible, and it took some in-house production and kind of like assembly in order to make that end up happening. But
So briefly for our listening audience, just to confirm and share that for everyone else, the two of you are co-CEOs in this.
Correct.
And so you've helped led and really shaped the company. But when did, for each of you, you realize like, wait, this is a good and viable idea? This is something we can like actually run with within the IBC and for possibly afterwards.
So we conducted a lot of research, what Dr. Austin, one of our professors, would call heart research. And we sent out a lot of surveys to campus, and we kind of targeted, we weren't able to send it to the full undergraduate email, but we were able to kind of target which dorms we wanted to. Sure. So based on our research of chains in general and kind of where that target market was, it was very much athletes, gym bros, that type of market. So we kind of narrowed it from there and then pinpointed various facets of campus to get the survey from, and all of our feedback from that survey was really what led us to realize that there was a need and there was a demand. And so it was after the feedback from the research that we realized this was a viable product because people were super, super interested. And then as we got product in, as we were testing, we literally went around campus with it in our hands, showed people, let them try it on, to get them to see it, because you can get a survey and you can get asked questions, but you don't see the product in your hand. It's very, very different. So we wanted to get our product in as many people's hands as possible. And I think that is what led to us being able to realize and know that we had a viable product, was to kind of get that first touch with people and to see what their reaction to it was going to be.
So Luke, if you think back to the session that the guys did, the previous episode, and they talked about, identifying a target market, you could see how they went hyper targeted, even within one college campus. They didn't just say send it to all the undergrads. In that sense, you didn't have the choice, but it was kind of nice that you couldn't, because it forced you to ask, well, who should we send it to? And then being able to then doing the surveys, right? Doing the hard work of writing the survey.
I remember getting that email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a gym bro. And then, but then getting that data, making decisions, right? And then getting the product back in their hands. And you guys could have, here's the thing. This is a lesson in entrepreneurship. You guys could have gone back with your first run of the product and people could have laughed you out of the park.
Right.
And that was a risk you were taking.
Right.
Right. And you were like,
yep.
They may love it, they may hate it, but we're going to do it anyway. It's all part of the process. So the guys give us the academic version. You're seeing how it plays out in real life.
Even better example, they used like Google like forms and everything to go through and do
All
it. It's
free
another
stuff.
example of like you can do this without or very little money.
Yep.
And
But if you were to think about, well, let's say you had skipped that step. Let's say you guys got in your classroom, 10 of you were like, oh yeah, we're going to have jewelry, and you had just gone for it. What are some blind spots, or what could have gone wrong had you not done the research, had you not gone and shown the first run of stuff to some potential customers?
Yeah, I think one of the things that immediately comes to mind for me is you could have invested a lot into this business. You could spend a lot of money. I mean, it's easy to spend money in the business world, and you could easily have spent so much money, and it could be designed that just people aren't interested in, and boom, immediately there's kind of a
and you got
pretty big
product
setback.
sitting in your garage somewhere,
Right.
on your dorm room.
Right.
If you order too much inventory, exactly,
Yeah.
you'll have tons that are just sitting around and you're not able to sell. So,
Right.
What about you, Mia? What would you think would be a risk factor of skipping this step?
I think we would have missed the entire need for community that we realized by doing the heart research. And I think that is really what has built such a hype around our company, is because it does really make people feel like they're connected to something.
So I know heart research is a term your professor uses, and it's used in the IBC. For our listeners, give us kind of the 30-second explanation of what is heart research versus just research.
Yeah. It's really getting to the digging deeper into the detail of what people actually need. So it's rather than asking questions that are catered to jewelry, which we did ask, and specifically to what their errors, what their problems were with chains in general.
Right.
It was asking like, how's life?
See,
what
that's powerful.
every day, do you have needs just on a daily basis when you wake up, when you go to sleep? Like what does your daily routine look like? What are things that you're missing? And we kind of paired up, like we had 10 of us. So we split up into pairs oftentimes and went and did this. And we talked to a lot of students.
So you were doing live interviews?
Live interviews, yes.
That's,
so this
so that's
was
part
live.
of
really helpful.
the lean
Yes.
startup methodology is just go talk to your potential customer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
So
we
as
just
you were
learned a lot
doing
more
it,
about
you
Yeah.
kind of, then would you guys get back together and go, I heard this and I heard
Yes.
this and I heard
exactly.
this?
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it sounds like you had a lot of support from your professors. What would you
Mhm.
say like that played into it? And like, what ways did it help
man,
you?
it is really helpful to have the profs at Cedarville specifically, but yeah, professors who know what they're doing and understand how to market a product really well. But like you said with the research, they were able to really help give us some ideas as to what's the way in which you want to structure these research methods, because it could totally be something that is, oh, you send this out and it really doesn't give you that clear information.
Or you don't know how to
You
frame the
don't have
questions
the right
right.
questions.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's say I don't get to go to a school like a Cedarville or a school that has a really
Yeah.
great entrepreneurship program. Would you recommend that startups still go pursue that? Get on the campus, find a way, get around people who can support you? Or do you say, hey, if it's not available, just figure it out on your own?
I'm a huge advocate for, if you don't know what you're doing, find somebody who does.
Yeah.
And learn from them and soak it all in. And obviously you can do the work yourself to try to figure it out, and there's resources online, but having that face-to-face interaction with a mentor is so much different and so much more influential in your life and your ability to succeed than if you were to just try to scrounge your way through finding out how to do things.
So Chayton, here's a question for you. So you guys do your research, and it's time to order product, which costs money, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming suppliers weren't going to offer you 90-day terms. They wanted their money up front or whatever it may be. How did you guys handle the discussion amongst the 10 of you or the program on how does this get funded?
Yeah. So at the beginning of every spring semester, we all receive a loan, which is a huge blessing, and it really helps to kind of jumpstart a lot of the initial product development in the second
Which we have
semester.
to apply for.
Yeah. And you have to apply for it, and you have to do all these different methods, and even just to receive it. And there's a whole committee that's a part of that, and they give their expertise.
They're vetting you.
Yeah, and they help us see is this something that's even viable? Is this possible? And then eventually, once you receive that loan, you're able to use that money to get your first products. And I found that to be really helpful just for our team, because a lot of the chains are difficult to. You'll see it in a picture, and you might receive it, and it's 10 times smaller than it actually looks.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of research in terms of buying several different chains just from different companies, and then once we received those, we narrowed down. Okay, this is our manufacturer that we really like, and this is the product that we think we're going to go with. Now, according to our market, when we did all the market research and heart research, how do we now segment that to make sure that we're buying enough product to satisfy their needs and desires,
That's the hard
while
part.
also not buying too much to where it is sitting around. And the cool thing with that is if you're careful and really thinking through that, you can also even potentially just get less, and that you're getting less than what the maybe the current market
just
wants.
sell out, right?
But then you'll sell out, and that's good marketing right there.
Yeah, so because I remember, when I met you and I saw Crown Chains for the first time, you were pretty close to sold out. You were like, I got one piece left.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I want 4. But that's good though, right?
Yeah.
It created this extra demand for me. I'm like, well, if I'm the last guy in line and there's still more people waiting, this must be really good product.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about that.
Those I believe were the pendants.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, can you talk about us and talk through what it was like while designing and figuring this out?
Yeah.
Yeah, what
Any
challenges did you
iterations?
guys run into
Yeah.
in the design of, because you aren't product designers, none of you are engineers.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was a
Yeah.
huge kind of tying into the support system thing and finding people who know what they're doing when you don't. That played a huge part in our manufacturing. We were able to connect with the engineering department with Dr. Fredette, who is a phenomenal professor
He's a
and just a
legend.
phenomenal man who loves the Lord a
Love
whole
him.
lot, but also is super skilled in what he does. So we connected with him, and he was able to take our idea of a logo.
Was it just
and
like hand drawn stuff?
it
that
was
you took-
like digitally
Okay,
drawn.
okay.
And so that was our official logo, and we basically just took it to him and we were like, we want this as a tangible piece of jewelry that you can wear. And he made that happen. He made us a CAD model, and he connected us with manufacturers, and we were able to get that drawn up and then produced, which was just the most incredible process to kind of walk alongside him with, because we did not know at all what we were doing with that software. SolidWorks, we don't know how to use any of those things. So it was really cool to get connected with him, and that is how we were able to get a simple idea of the crown of thorns produced as something that people can actually wear.
So then at the moment we have the crown of thorns pendant. We have chains, both silver and gold, and these are rope chains. And then we also, you mentioned very briefly, a bracelet. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
more about that, please?
Yeah. So
Why don't you fashion model it for us? 'Cause
yeah,
we're wearing it.
yeah.
I know we've got.
we have a few of the kind of some of the first ones that we've ever made, actually, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're outfitted with our new clasps, which we're
Yep.
really excited about. And they're 2 times as strong.
Yep.
And we are planning to release them near the end of the month. So it's actually coming, really soon.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the idea of the chains very similarly. We want it to be sleek, aesthetic, and we want it to kind of have that brand cohesivity in terms of making sure that it's a similar design as what our chains are and make sure that it all feels like it's one company, but we're just releasing different lines and different product models. And so it's been really fun to kind of work out those ideas. And
So then bracelets are what's next, or is there something else that might be like behind the veil?
Bracelets are
There's
the
more.
public
Bracelets are the
what's
things
next.
right now. Yeah.
We do have a potential idea of a new pendant that may or may not be able to be released.
Do you mind sharing it with us here?
No, we don't ask for product secrets. Hey, so Mia, here's a question for you. I'm going back a step here.
Yeah.
To the fact that you guys decided we want to build a brand and we want to build products, but we also want to have this movement side of things. I think that's a piece that a lot of brands miss. So talk to us a little about why you went about that decision and how's it going
Yeah.
as far as you're selling product, but is there a real community building? Is there a movement? How do you know? What does
Right.
it feel like?
Right.
Also, can you also touch on how like you're trying to get this off campus too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that ties into like the community that we're building. I think we saw it most on drop day, on September 1st. And one of the ways that we built the hype around the launch of our product was we started marketing so early. We had a viable product by the end of March, early April, spring semester of last year. So a year ago at this time.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
we didn't actually launch until September 1st.
Yeah.
And
We had all summer.
Yeah, we had all summer to kind of continue testing, to really refine our product and refine the magnet clasp that we were using. Myself and our consumer relations specialist spent the entire month of May just like testing out different clasps, and we were trying to really hone in on what was the right one. And the demand was just so high because people had already seen it. We had already gotten it into people's hands that people were begging to buy before summer. And we were like,
It's coming.
It's coming. So we
Yeah.
built up our social media presence. And then as we got to the beginning of the summer, we did soft launch and we sold to a couple of people. We made a decent amount of money actually on our
So
soft
they could start
launch.
to walk around with them.
Kind of rep a little bit more. Cam Arminio became one of our first ambassadors.
And I was just about to ask you, did you selectively choose who was going to be part of it so they're more influencer type?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And we had people who had already kind of asked us who were interested, who had gained interest themselves, and then we were like, yeah, I think you'd be a great fit. So we
So
built
now
that
like
brand.
there's some
and-
bubbling up of
Yes,
energy
right.
going on.
So
Yep.
then we launched a countdown on our
Yes.
social media to the day that we were dropping, and we had our flagship video play in chapel, and then we had our table in the lower SSC to sell that day. And the entire day was a long line
was
through
Really?
the SSC. Yeah.
It was really cool.
That's awesome. And the price point
Yeah.
is very reasonable, right?
Yes.
Especially for college students. What was it priced at launch day?
$20,
$20. I mean, yeah.
And
that's
what about the
totally doable.
pendants
$10.
and the bracelets?
They'll be $15.
$15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it that you sensed on launch day that says, "Oh man, we envisioned a movement, we envisioned a community, and it could be happening"? What made you feel that way?
Oh my word. Yeah, I think kind of like what you were mentioning, the long line kind of in the SSC.
Yeah.
And then also there's a sense too of having like an online following of people who are interested in your product. So we've had a lot of engagement just from people through our Instagram and through other various like media outlets where you're seeing people and they're excited about it and they're commenting and they're talking about it with their friends. I've even seen it. I mean, I'll walk around campus or even another place and I'll see people wearing our chains. And it's so cool because I've actually had people come up and they're like, "Oh, you're involved with the chain business, right?"
Right.
And then I strike up a conversation
Yes.
and then it might lead to something completely different than chains or a company, which is great.
Right.
You know,
And
and that's the initial jump start to
Yes.
community and to communicate.
You know
with
what
people.
I'm so impressed
Yeah.
with is that because usually your industry is very transactional. Like I could go on a Nordstrom website or some
Right.
third-party website and buy a chain and never even know who the manufacturer was and never have any relationship with them.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, your people are coming on site to see you. They're doing engagement on social media. That's huge, and that's a lesson for all our startups.
Yeah.
is how do you do the hard stuff
Yeah.
and get to the community stuff?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the sustainability.
And I would
Yeah.
add to, I think part of the reason that there's such a community is, especially within the Christian environment,
Yeah.
there's such a greater purpose for the products that we're producing than just a stylistic chain. Specifically with the pendants and the crown of thorns, and that being the entire frame of reference for the brand. And it allows people in maybe a market that has difficulty having something that is a physical, like, accessory or apparel to represent their faith, that now they do. So it's like we've given a market that needed an avenue to represent their faith, that avenue through chains.
And was that part of kind of the heart research probably uncovered that, right, for you? That's awesome. I know you're dying to ask the closing question, but
I'm ready for it.
I do have one question for you before Luke takes over, is what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are listening and watching, and maybe they have a product idea, but really it's still stuck at idea phase? Like, what are 1 or 2 or 3 tips or words of encouragement each of you would have? I'll start with Mia, then we'll go to Chaitin, and then we'll go to your question.
I would say kind of what I said before, but like find somebody who either has experience in startup businesses or who is an expert in the field that your product sits in.
Okay.
And for us, that was Dr. Fredette in the engineering department. And he was a huge help in us figuring out how do we keep our expectations realistic from a manufacturing standpoint, but also how do we like kind of push the boundaries a little bit? How do we do things that are new? How do we do things that maybe you wouldn't expect to be able to come out of a student-run company? So finding somebody to help you along with your process. And I think part of that goes to just be determined. Don't give up. Like, be passionate about what you're doing, because if you are passionate about what you believe in, you will attract people who are also going to be passionate about what you believe in.
Well
and it's
said.
not about what you're producing, but it's why you're producing it. And I think if you're passionate about why you're producing it, then you'll be able to attract people who want to be alongside that journey with you.
That's great. Chaitin?
Yeah, I think my first thought immediately goes to creating something that does create community and something that does kind of fulfill a need that someone that people have. And if you're not fulfilling any kind of need,
Like
then there's
deep
no reason.
down kind of need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for that, some people, I mean, they're not consciously thinking, oh, I have this need for community, or I have this need to
Right.
share my faith with people using an object that I'm wearing. They're not thinking
Right.
that. But how can you create a product that both shows that need, but also helps to kind of give a solution for that need and make it something that is exciting and different and new and sets you apart from other things on the market? I do think sometimes when people are starting up a business, it's great, I'm going to create a brand, and it's exciting, and that's a great idea. But if you don't have anything that is necessarily setting you apart from what the competition has, then it's going to be really difficult to market yourself well and market yourself as something
Your
that's
costs
different.
are going to be higher. and all that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, what advice would you have for those who have a great product idea or think that they have one, but they're not sure what to do next?
Yeah, and I think to an extent we're kind of sometimes in that spot too. It's not.
Yeah,
I mean, we haven't.
still researching.
It's not a set process, and it's not something that we've completely figured out. I mean, we're just a bunch of students who have enjoyed, riding along with this amazing kind of opportunity. But I do think going and leaning harder into kind of everyone's online right now. How can you cater to the needs of people online through your social medias and through your website development? I mean, if you can create something that people are excited to be a part of and caters to their needs, but it also is presented in a light that's really that's biblical, if you're a Christian-based company, which is awesome, or something that is enjoyable and exciting to be a part of, and that's continually growing. Sometimes there's a lack of content, I think, that happens whenever you kind of get in those stagnant situations.
Yeah, because then you're just sending
Yeah.
pictures.
'Cause you're not sure.
You're just posting pictures of stuff.
reposting the same pictures.
Yeah.
Talk to more photographers. Talk to other people who
Right.
will help you to grow your business in a different way than, because you're just one person.
Yeah.
So talking to those people and receiving their expertise.
Yeah.
What would you
it was
say
huge for
briefly,
us.
Mia?
So
I'd say figure out why you're doing what you're doing. I think you can have a really, really great idea and you can have a really great product, but if you don't know why you're producing it, then you're not going to be able to exemplify that to your
Or if the
customer
why
base.
is just I want to make money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta
If you
figure
don't
out a
make money,
greater
then-
a greater
Yeah.
reason than
Yeah.
that, and like
Good.
finding a reason that is really for your customer too. And I think that's something that we've really strived for, is to be like Christ-centered and consumer-focused. Is like that Christ always comes first, but our consumer does come second.
They come ahead of you and your
Yeah.
agenda. So that's what I know is going to make you successful. Is you've built a customer-centric brand that's designed to honor the Lord. You're listening for hard stuff.
Yeah.
You're building community with them. You're giving them an identity. You're giving them Like those are intangibles
Right,
that
right.
will outperform every other competitor, even if they sell 1 million units a year right now.
Yep.
You'll have them beat soon. Okay, you
So-
get to ask them your last question. 'cause
Well,
you've been dying
really,
to post
before
next.
we close out, I want to know where can our audience and everyone else who's listening find you guys?
Yeah. Our website is crownchains.square.site, and you can also follow us on Instagram at crownchains. So